Greetings once again. It's Dr. Jonathan Ellerby with another live 12 at 12. And it is June 13th when I'm recording this. You might be watching it live or you might be watching it later or again. We've been doing this every day, I think for at least 3 months now. And there's no end in sight because the 12 at 12 is designed as a quick deep dive into lessons for living, mindful wellness, and spiritual growth in strange and uncertain times, and the times just keep getting stranger and more uncertain. So we're going to catch our breath for a moment here, and then we're going to get into a very useful topic and something that's actually like a secret psychological backdoor trick to understanding relationships and personal growth. So with that in mind, let's take a breath together, sitting comfortably but alert. I'm going to encourage you to close your eyes. Big breath in, big breath out. Just feel yourself slowing down and settling down. Feeling a growing sense of quietness, focusing on the exhale, really, really long exhale. And as best you can, when you breathe in, you're trying to breathe into your belly. That's an abdominal breath. That means you're pushing your stomach muscles out when you breathe in. So feel the change in your breath, the change in your attitude, the opening of your heart. And as we touch in that quiet place, we find this very important balance between feeling our connection to life, but knowing that we are centered, grounded, and balanced within. Then when you're ready, you come back to the room. And today we are talking about life mastery, maturity, and spiritual growth through the lens of the stages and ages of life. But it's not quite what you think. What this arises from, this conversation, is the ever-present conflict and disconnect we see in the communication that's going on in the world today. How people are communicating, what they're communicating, and how they're communicating about what they're communicating. And what this really points to the fact, or what this is really pointing to, is that more often than not, we are capable of seeing and feeling clearly what other people are saying or are needing. But because of the place in themselves that they are speaking from, and the place in ourselves that we are hearing from, it continuously feels like a mismatch. Now, here's the big whopper. When you see reactivity, the first thing to pay attention to is the age that reaction depicts. When you see, which includes for yourself, or feel reactivity, pay attention to the age of life that attitude and behavior reflects. Now, what you'll notice is that most of the time, most of our difficult conversations that break down, difficult relations that are at an impasse, difficult ability to recognize what others are going through and to be there for them in a supportive way, is rooted in the fact that one or both are simply not behaving their age. Now, I know, it sounds almost trite or insulting. It sounds like I'm saying act your age, not your shoe size or whatever that old joke is. But it's a little bit like that. There's more to it, though. Most of our reactions are not based on present moment conditions. Psychologically speaking, it's arguable that nearly, not always, but nearly 100%, let's say 90%, of your reactions to things, if there's a reaction, is based on a wound and history, something that happened before. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you know when you are with someone who says that what they're feeling about something doesn't seem to match the magnitude of the something. As an example, now this is a contentious example, the murder of George Floyd and millions of people erupting in protest, aggression, peace, violence, reconciliation, all this. It would be foolish to think, and I hope no one actually thinks this, that this is because of the murder of George Floyd. The murder of George Floyd was the door, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. But the murder of Breonna Taylor, which happened just previous, and frankly was probably much, much worse, because this was a truly innocent person in every capacity. Not only was she an EMT worker, not accused of anything illegal, ever, but she was in her own bed sleeping when the police broke in and murdered her at home. Okay? So take that situation, no eruption into violence, and then the next one, total eruption into violence, or not all violence, but protest and demonstration. So what we have to know in our heart of hearts, in our minds, is that clearly this is about something bigger. And of course it is, and of course it should be. But the same thing is going on in your life, in the way you're reacting to people's posts and the news, and whether people wear face masks or not. If someone's wearing a mask and you choose not to wear a mask, that doesn't mean they're fearful. It doesn't mean they're deluded. It doesn't mean anything to you except they're wearing a face mask. And the opposite is true. If someone is not wearing a face mask, it doesn't mean they're disrespectful. It doesn't mean they're foolish. The point is, the only person you can account for as an adult is yourself. Projection and blame is the behavior of a child. The kinds of things that get us in trouble when we are in communication about the things that matter most are typically not about what we're communicating about. They are rooted in history and woundedness. And the amazing thing, and this is really kind of the trick, I guess, if you want to call it that, is that if you pay attention to the way you behave in your reactivity, what age does it sound like? What age does it look like? Does it sound like a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old throwing a tantrum? Does it sound like a 6-year-old saying, I know you are, but what am I? Right? Do you get the idea? Does it sound like a 10-year-old withdrawing and sulking? What you'll find is there's a correlation between the topic, the trigger, and when you were first hurt in a related fashion. And then you know for sure that not only is your present interaction being shaped by the past, that it's not about what you think it's about, but you also know there's some work to do, some healing to be done for the young self, the inner child, the wounded self. Now, of course, for some people this sounds like, oh boy, are you trying to tell us that everybody's hurt and everybody's wounded? And pretty much, yes. In different degrees, you don't get through childhood without loss and disappointment and not fitting in and not feeling approval when you needed it. All that stuff happens because no one's perfect. No family's perfect. If the parents are perfect all the time, then the kids feel unworthy. If the parents are mean all the time or absent all the time, then the child feels unworthy, right? It's just part of life. But what we do with it, how we heal it, how we understand it, how we evolve with it, how we learn from it, that's what transforms us. That's what matures us. And as adults, we have the power to take accountability for our own feelings and words. We have the ability to feel, to heal without using our emotions against people. And we have the capacity as mature, mindful, spiritually evolved adults to not be victims of our past and act out of reactivity. So the point is, it's okay to have reactions. We all do. But to have the emotional reaction is one thing. To move it into our words, our behavior, and at the worst, how we treat others with language, decisions, even violence, that's where it breaks down. And we have to say that is not the behavior of a mature adult. When someone says, if you don't play the way I want you to play, I'm going to beat you up. Does that sound like an adult? Or does that sound like, what does that sound like? It sounds like about 9 years old, 10 years old, right? Bully on the playground. When someone says, I don't want to hear what you're saying, I'm turning it off. I'm going into denial. What does that sound like? Like 4 years old? Something like that? When someone finds themselves perpetually in rage or tears, that's about 3, right? 2 or 3. And it doesn't have to be a perfect science. What we're talking about is ownership and maturation. To recognize that when you are with people who are speaking and acting in ways that don't reflect the conversation or topic at hand, you've got to know you're not talking to that person anymore. You're talking to them as a child. And you got to ask yourself, is that a conversation you want to have? Or do you want to wait and tell them, let's do this when we're both in a better place. Let's do this when you sound a little more like yourself. Because right now, whatever I say, it seems to me, feels to me, it's hard for you to hear. It's hard for you to respond. Let me give you some space. Or take ownership. I think I need some space. It also means for yourself, right? So once again, you listen to your own dialogue. You listen to your words. You observe your reaction and ask yourself, does this really reflect a mature, mindful adult? Or is this some part of me from long ago that never got heard, that never got felt? And those are 2 separate things. And yes, both must be addressed, but they must each be addressed in different ways. So once again, to close, to understand true life mastery and mindful living, we have to learn to recognize the age appropriateness, sounds a little overly psychological, or the chronological root of the thinking and feeling that we are caught up in. Be kind to yourself. Observe yourself. Give space to your reactions and interactions with others, and then assess from a place of balance, curiosity, mend what needs to be mended, love and heal what needs to be loved and healed, and do the same for others. But don't mix your important conversations, decisions, attitudes, and behaviors as an adult with the wounds and the pains and the injustices you felt as a child. It's not helping any of us. Well, I don't know. That seems like a big one to me. Maybe not to you. I'm always happy to get your feedback, comments, and questions. This is Dr. Jonathan Ellerby. If you want to learn more, go to jonathanellerby.com. I'm grateful you were here. If you like this, please share it. Lots of love, and I'll see you soon.